Lantern Shield is way stronger and way more fun than you think it is. Before I show you how to set up your Lantern Shield fighter, let me tell you how I got here. I was playing melee sorcerer until Iron Mace kinda killed it with the recent nerfs, so I went back to playing Longsword fighter. I wanted to play an arena with high gear score, and Longsword wasn't really doing it for me. Longsword will always be the god weapon of Squire kit with its crazy riposte damage, but it doesn't scale very well with good gear in arena. I tried out Lantern Shield instead, and since then, I have been hooked. Lantern Shield gives you the best of both worlds between Longsword and Shield Fighter. Longsword parries are hard to hit but have insane damage, while the Lantern Shield parries are much easier to hit but with less damage, making it way more consistent. It also scales better with true physical and physical damage reduction, and these differences make it a superior weapon in most cases, in my opinion. It's also a ton of fun to use in the dungeon, especially in this Hatchet Barb meta. Barbarians are pretty easy to parry with the Lantern Shield, and I'm in for any character that can kill barbs. Not to mention how stylish it is to see your name with a Lantern Shield kill in the feed. Hopefully this argument, and the background clips, have convinced you to try out Lantern Shield, so let's get into the build. The next thing I want to talk about are the best perks and skills for Lantern Shield Fighter. The first one, and I would consider this non-negotiable, is counterattack. The move speed bonus is really nice, both in melee and ranged combat. So imagine you're fighting a barbarian who's trying to space you a little bit. You get the block, and they back up a little bit. This 10% move speed is 30 ms. It's a ton of move speed. Helps you close the gap and either land your Lantern Shield riposte or dodge the next attack. It's really good. It's also really good at range. Like imagine you're fighting a ranger or a wizard, like a wizard with an ice bolt, let's say. The 10% move speed and action speed triggers when you block a ranged attack. So if you're running down an archer and you're blocking arrows, you're getting like a baby sprint every time you block an arrow. Or if you block a magic missile or an ice bolt, you're getting a baby sprint to run the wizard down. So counterattack is awesome. It feels really good. The next one that is non-negotiable is Sword Mastery. This 2 weapon damage that you get from Sword Mastery applies to your Lantern Shield damage, which is huge. So even if you never swung with the arming sword at all, just holding it is giving you more damage on your Lantern Shield. And that 2 weapon damage applies to both attacks, so it's really like 4 damage per riposte. Then you have the riposte scaling, headshot scaling, so this 2 weapon damage becomes a lot of damage. And you also get the 10 additional move speed in defensive stance. So you're faster when you're holding your shield up trying to get the block, and you do more damage with the riposte. And if you don't get any blocking and you're just swinging an arming sword, you're getting more damage there too. So this is another non-negotiable perk. It is just great all around, as long as you're running arming sword Lantern Shield. The next one that I'd say is almost non-negotiable, maybe you could convince me in certain situations, is Swift. So right here I'm wearing a pretty light armor kit, and when I put Swift on, I'm getting 6 move speed. 6 move speed is more than you can get for the additional move speed rolls on boots. And people pay a lot of money, hundreds of gold, maybe even thousands of gold when you get to high gear, to have 5 add move speed. Like, just the value of this perk is crazy. It's not flashy, but it's a lot of move speed, even in like a medium armor kit like the one I'm wearing. In plate gear, this becomes more and more valuable. You can easily get to like 10, 12 move speed. Maybe you're like playing buff ball and your move speed capped anyway, so you don't take Swift, you take something else instead, but 99% of the time, I'd say blocking these 3 perks. Now here, in the 4th perk slot, we have a little bit of room for debate. We're going to be choosing one of the following 2 almost all the time, and that would be either Barricade or Weapon Mastery. First, we'll talk about Barricade. So Barricade's giving you about 10% PDR, 10% MDR while in defensive stance. One interesting quirk of this perk is that the riposte animation counts as being in defensive stance. So this really reads gain 10% MDR and PDR while holding up your shield or while actively riposting. And that's a big chunk of the time when you're in combat. Like, if you're really trying to land the Lantern Shield riposte, you spend almost all your time in combat either trying to get the block or swinging the riposte. Spend some time swinging with the arming sword, sure, but a good chunk of your time you're having that 10% PDR MDR. It's not 100% uptime, but it's a good amount of uptime. I think that this perk is really valuable when you're running a heavy armor kit. So let's say, like, just for example, for some reason I was running like this plate kit instead. Now I'm up to 40% PDR, and then Barricade's giving me about another 10. Now I'm up to 50%. The thing about PDR is that it's more valuable the higher you are on the curve. So like the difference between 0 and 20% PDR is smaller than the difference between 20 and 40, which is smaller than the difference between 40 and 60, etc. So this 10% PDR is more valuable in plate armor. So if you're gonna run like a high PDR kit, I think Barricade is really sick. Like it can get you closer to PDR cap than you would be without it a good amount of the time when you're using the Lantern Shield. In heavy armor like this Squire kit I'm showing you here, Barricade's great. Barricade is objectively good, but the reason why we won't run it all the time is because it's competing with Weapon Mastery for the same perk slot. Weapon Mastery lets us run any weapon at the game with a 5% damage penalty, but in this context, what you're really getting from Weapon Mastery is the ability to run a longbow or a serve bow instead of just a crossbow. We're not going to be using this perk to run a crystal sword or a dagger because I'm not a terrible person. If you're in light armor and you want to have an option at ranged, I think Weapon Mastery is like a totally acceptable choice. Barricade's still good in light armor. Like 10% PDR is always good to have if you want to commit more to like a lower armor, higher move speed melee style of combat. I think you could run Barricade or Weapon Mastery in medium armor. But if you're going to commit to like a higher armor plate build with a plate chest, maybe even plate pants, then Barricade gets more and more value the more PDR you have. Now I want to talk about a couple honorable mentions here. I wouldn't recommend running them most of the time, but they do have like, they're worth talking about. The first one is Defense Mastery. As you can see here, I go from 26.6 to a whopping 29%. Holy cow, 2% PDR, that's like 15 armor. That's like less armor rating than my white helmet. Of course, it would be more in heavy armor, but even still, that's like, we're talking like 4% PDR, 4 or 5% PDR in Squire plate. So in low gear, Defense Mastery is terrible. But the caveat here is that I run Defense Mastery in my Arena kit. My Arena kit actually has a Lantern Shield in it, and I am at PDR cap, 75% PDR. The actual like bonus armor rating from this perk is kind of like useful. It's like a nice to have, but I wouldn't run the perk just for that. But the PDR limit increasing to 75% is the real value in this perk. So if you're running insane bists with all armor rolls in the regular dungeon for whatever reason, go Defense Mastery. You're probably not though. I'm not. The only time I ever use this is in my Arena kit. So if you want to play like Lantern Shield Fighter at max PDR in Arena, consider Defense Mastery if you're like past the 65% armor cap. Beyond that, don't even consider this perk. Think of this perk as mainly increasing the PDR limit from 65 to 75 with a little extra gravy that you get a couple extra percent PDR. Most of the time though, you don't want this perk. And then the last honorable mention here is maybe Shield Mastery. When I run Longsword, I often use Shield Mastery because it gets you the riposte out quicker. But one thing you'll notice is that with Lantern Shield, the burst attack is already coming out so fast. Longsword has these really slow like overhead sweeps that come out. But Lantern Shield, even without Shield Mastery, is really snappy. Like it's a really quick like 1-2 punch with the Lantern Shield. And I find that if I apply Shield Mastery and go Lantern Shield, I'm very often missing the first riposte just because it comes out so fast. Like it comes out surprisingly fast. I think that if you played perfectly and you never missed, sure, you can make an argument for taking Shield Mastery in this slot. But even for me, like with some practice with Lantern Shield, I find this to be like cool in theory, but then actually not that useful in practice. And I would rather just have Barricade or Weapon Mastery. We talk about perks and skills real quick. I mean, the TLDR is Go Sprint and Second Wind. That has been like the fighter meta for so long. If I was really like, if I'm playing HR solos in high gear, I'm going Sprint Second Wind every time. These are like without a doubt the two strongest skills, and that's why everyone runs them every game. If you wanted to have some fun, you could swap out one of these two skills for Shield Slam. Shield Slam is really fun, especially because we're already like doing shield spec anyway, so Shield Slam is really cool. But the damage is just like so laughable that it's basically more crowd control than it is damage. It's basically a knockback and then a slow. But wouldn't you rather just go faster for longer with like no downside? The Shield Slam is funny and fun, but I wouldn't recommend it. And the same thing's kind of true of Spell Reflection. Like in team play, Spell Reflect most of the time has value because they probably have some sort of caster. But in solos, you're not running into many casters. And imagine you're playing trios. You bring Spell Reflect because you want to try and bounce a fireball. What if they don't have a caster? What if they're like a bard, barbarian, fighter? Or even like super common to be bard, cleric, barbarian. If they don't have a caster for you to bounce a spell off of, you just wasted a skill slot. So because these are like, this one is super situational and this one is just kind of fun and funny, it's obvious that these are the two that you should be choosing almost every time on fighter, and it's no different with Lantern Shield Fighter. Now let's talk about gear. Really quickly, here's an example Squire kit if you want to copy it. The one thing worth noting is I've chosen weapon mastery and a survival bow here. Next is the 224 kit. A couple things worth noting here. Feel free to pause the video if you want to see the individual pieces, but I'm going barricade here because I'm at 40% PDR, and I think the extra 10% is really helpful at this range. I go for a green arming sword and a purple lantern shield, just to get add weapon damage on the arming sword. I'm hoping to do most of the damage with the shield. And then here is my arena kit. It's not totally perfect, so don't flame me for a couple of weird off rolls I have. But here I go for plate pants to get my PDR high. I'm trying to hit 75%. I get 74.6% PDR in this kit, and I have to take defense mastery to do that. One quick thing I should say about the attribute prioritization guide is that armor rating is important to slot in here, but it depends a lot on your build. If you're in light armor, you don't really care at all about armor rating, and if you're going to hit PDR cap, it's the most important thing. So you'll have to slot armor rating into the prioritization scheme based on the type of build you're running. And there you have it. That's basically all the tips I have for Lantern Shield. I want to share this clip of me playing some naked goblin caves with the homies, and then I have a little Easter egg for you guys at the end. Please like, comment, subscribe, check me out on other platforms that you can find linked below. If you want to see some live, full Lantern Shield gameplay, please come check me out on my Twitch. I'm trying to stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. And thank you all so much for the support. See you in the next one.
Oh no.
I'm fine. Oh, what the?
Oh shit!
Oh, I see.
Stay on him, stay on him. Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! I'm knocking
shit.
him out. Get the pelt, get the pelt.
Check. I'm checking. No pelt. One all win locket.
Is it good?
I mean, one all win locket purple.
Oh, I want it.
So, you want it?
Yes.
All right.
Give.
Extraction
Running.
protocol.
It has PDR, bruh.
Oh, like we're getting out?
I'm running. Oh, what the fuck? Fuck this guy. He sucks ass.
Sammy. Thank you, Sammy.
Got him.
Sorry.
Kill this foul monster.
I need heals desperately.
Why would you do that?
You need to, I'm terrified. I like how you waited.
I took my hand came off the keyboard.
Floor spikes killed him.